So my wife is expecting right now. She's pregnant. So she's on 14 or almost 15th week, right? So the first time that she saw OBGYN here, no tests were made, no blood tests, nothing. The first time she saw him, he prescribed her progesterone. And I was asking right away, why? How do you know that she is depleted of this hormone? Oh, no need. You can take it, but if you don't want to, you don't need to take it. Why do they do that? Without any tests?
In my opinion, that's malpractice.
Yes.
Right? To offer a exogenous hormone without any sort of lab or any sort of clinical justification, I consider that malpractice. I don't hear that often. Usually it's based on a lab. And even then, exogenously, meaning taking something from the outside that your body doesn't make, right? Endogenously would be considering what her body is making. Anytime you take something from the outside, especially a hormone, there is an instant dysregulation of other hormones. If it's not based on a lab, I would argue that that's just malpractice. That's either short-sighted and they're lazy, or it's actually just I don't know a doctor that then says, "Oh, don't take it if you don't want to." It's like very odd. Like that's
we changed the doctor right away after he said that. Okay, so most of the OBGYNs would say once you become pregnant, you have to take this folic acid. And I was arguing, why folic acid? Why not folate? And why not eat the food that has the folate? Folic acid is a synthetic thing, right? You can't find it in any food. But they're always saying folic acid. And if you don't, you're going to have these problems with the child, right? That's what they're saying. And the truth is what? Up to you.
So the reason why they started to recommend folic acid is because there were very measurable and very severe midline defects. Things like cleft palate, spina bifida, right? Cleft palate is like, have you ever seen somebody with a cleft palate? You could Google it. You could see like in the palate, the bone at the top of the roof of the mouth, it's split.
I got you.
The whole kind of deformity of the cranial vault, and then there's multiple midline defects, but down in the lower back, sometimes the spinal segments down there don't close, and when that midline defect, sometimes the entire back is exposed from the skin, right? So their theory was that it's a deficiency of what they called folic acid back then. But back then they didn't tell people that folic acid was something they made in a lab.
Correct.
The deficiency was folate, right? The deficiency was actually food that was actually fully nourished with that vitamin that comes from nature. Folic acid is a synthetic derivative, and folic acid is a straight toxin. I have an episode on my podcast with a medical doctor who turned into this like natural health free birth mama, right? Like she doesn't even have OBs at all. She just delivers her own babies at home. And part of her journey was realizing that folic acid was not just toxic, but it's a poison. Like it's literally a poison that creates more problems than it actually causes with detoxification, with methylation, all sorts of different very foundational physiological functions. And so
methylation is when you take something in and you convert it into something that is useful for your body.
Methylation is by nature is just adding a methyl group to molecules in your body, right? But it's also a key factor in detoxification. So liver pathways in phase 1, phase 2 detoxification, methylation is a key ability for your body to actually detox.
Oh, correct, yes.
And but methylation is also very involved in turning on and turning off genes and things like that. The point of bringing this up is it became not just supplementing during pregnancy. If you look at any bread today, any bread that says fortified or any food that's fortified,
enriched,
that's essentially what they're adding in is all those synthetic derivatives of B vitamins, because the actual B vitamins are very core to human physiology. So instead of actually eating the foods that are high in it, they fortify the breads because it's easier for you to take. They tell you, like back in the day before you came to this country, there's a bread called Wonder Bread. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's basically white bread, completely depleted of all of its, like you eat
bleached, yes.
If you eat whole, if you eat properly made sourdough, the nourishment from that food is actually very high. But when you deplete it of everything, you basically bleach it of everything, and then you add back, they called it Wonder Bread because they wanted people to believe that adding back those vitamins were going to be better than actually what comes from nature.
But why would they do that? So these are two processes. You have to bleach and then add up. So both of those processes plus the minerals, they cost.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
It's not, well, it's cost on the front end, but it's marketing, it's patent on the back end, and then it's not just the food. It's one of, like, I would argue that back in the 80s when people were eating Wonder Bread was maybe the gateway drug to the food industry that eventually led to all the things that we have in the pharmaceutical industry.
How?
Because let's talk about what's talking about, or what this new administration, right? Bobby Kennedy's in the HHS. He's talking about red food dyes. He's talking about fluoride. He's talking about these different toxicities and these foods that we give to our children, right? That if you look at all those Senate hearings they had with the food activists, right? They were showing in Europe, right? They were showing the Fruit Loops
Correct.
in America and the Fruit Loops in Canada, right? And they're showing the label difference, and then they were showing the color difference.
Correct.
Chemicals that are banned in foreign countries, we give to our kids every single day, knowing that if we continue to do that, what is our statistics today in our children? 54% of our kids have chronic illness today. 1 in 2 children have chronic illness today. 1 in 6 has a learning disorder. 1 in 4 in America requires special education. And no one, show me anyone that's talking about that right now, right? Show me anyone that's talking about that. They're talking about chronic disease, right? But they're not talking about chronic neurodevelopment. They're not talking about chronic need for special education. They're not talking about over COVID, the absolute plummeting by like 22 points. Some tests were showing that kids' IQ were plummeting by 22%.